Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're listening to us from. My name is Jacqueline Asiimwe and I work with CivSource Africa. CivSource Africa and Civ Legacy Foundation are hosting the inaugural Leaders Gala and Ball on 2nd October. We want to celebrate all things leadership. We want to celebrate great leadership, but it's also our 8th birthday and a moment where we shall also launch our dream, the Leaders Oasis, a transformative retreat space that will just revolutionize leadership in Africa. But before that, I am here in the great city of Nairobi talking to my two guests, Francis and Dora Musingizi, who were part of our leadership journey as CivSource Africa. They attended our very first experience retreats. Dorah, who attended the first one, which was for females, and then Francis, her partner, her husband, who attended the one for men. In fact, Francis would never had one for men alone ever since. You can imagine, you guys just were chaotic. Anyway, but yeah, so they are here this afternoon and we're going to have a beautiful conversation. But first, I'd like them to tell our listeners a bit about themselves. So Dorah, who is Dorah? And tell us a bit about yourself.
Thank you, Jackie. We love to call you Mother Goose, and that's a story we've developed from the leadership experiences. Dorah, I am a people lover, I'm a God lover. I also want to call myself a community builder. In the past, I've led a number of initiatives. About 3-4 years ago, I was the Executive Director for UGANET. I since moved on from that. I am now leading some of very, very deep work around violence prevention, work with raising voices. Out of the workspace, I have led initiatives with young women. I have led dreams. I am so passionate around creating healing spaces. I now lead a business around healing space. Yeah, that is me. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a child of God. I bask in all these different identities that I think make me who I am.
Nice. And Francis, whom are you?
So I'm Francis Musinguzi, and I look at myself as a build of leaders. This is what powers me, and I'm a person who also believes in Africa, believing that Africa, together with the Global South, can in fact be empowered to take their place at the top. And I'm a person who also believes in the place of knowledge, the driving place of knowledge, reading and writing of books, and using that knowledge to power myself as a leader, but also other leaders to become more creative in terms of navigating shifts that we see across the globe.
Nice.
Yeah.
So in the introduction, I said both of you attended our experience retreats. They were the very, very first. We were raw as raw can be. But what was your individual experience of that experience?
I will go first, and I really want to appreciate that Dorah introduced me to this space because I remember I dropped her off at the water as the team took off, and she just had a baby. And, the baby getting in the water, the thoughts we had at that point, I was wondering, but because I knew Jackie, I said, I really want you to go. And so when she comes back and she's telling me the stories, I really wanted to be in that space. And so when there was an opportunity, I was so glad and I was selected to be among the leaders, to be part of that week of sharing. And for me, the experience was truly, truly mind-blowing, because in a very simple way, I saw the other side of leadership, connecting with the soul, creativity, and, leading from authenticity. And for me, that was revolutionizing to the way I had looked at leadership, and in fact, the way that I apply leadership since then.
Yeah. Nice. And we shall go deeper into it. But Dorah, what was your experience?
It was a deep one. I reflect back actually with a lot of pride and a lot of joy over what has grown from that moment on. Indeed, when you sent an email, it was, I think, the Christmas of 2017. And you were asking us, as leaders, we are coming together. You're invited to be in a place where leaders will bring ideas and thoughts and reflect about what makes leaders. Quickly, I don't know why my head threw it to the point of money and strategies around building money and thoughts around about building money. Maybe because from what CivSource represents from a philanthropy point of view, it's the first thought that settled for me. So because it was asking us to come immediately after the year had started, I thought it was like one of those strategy meetings, and I felt like I should come and have my year in order, especially around fundraising and building money. Oh my goodness, I was so shocked. It was totally different. It was a space that was inviting leaders to unwind, to kind of think about themselves, how to lead and lead well. It was about what makes leaders strong. It was about well-being. It totally was different from what I imagined. From that moment, it created a community for me that has remained. It gave me tenets that I've continued to use. It introduced me. It connected with what was always in the depth of me, loving wellness and finding spaces and environments and strength that heals. And that's what I got out of that space. And that has continued to be with me over the 6 years that have passed. That has remained a big cornerstone of my life. We quickly came out of that space, and a year later we're dealing with COVID. We could not have managed the COVID time if we hadn't been in the space. It looked like, how you're prepared for a long journey, but you feed well and strengthen well, and then you are into a journey where you have to really tap into the reserves you've built over time. And that's what, for me, the first experience at the escape really meant for me. It turned a number of things for me. Leaders that are not well don't lead well. So emphasizing a space of wellness and continuous healing for me and for my team and for the people that I led at that time made us ready to pass through COVID, lead within COVID, bring healing and strength to others within COVID. Oh, I can tell you a long story.
Wow, that is amazing. And Francis, you too were impacted after, or rather you were impacted during the retreat, and then after you did something which we still drop our jaws and say, he did what? So can you tell about it then as what you did?
Yeah, so I think as Dorah's mentioned, this was very impactful space. And some of these you wish you could measure them, but they are much bigger than the metrics that we use for measuring progress. Because I remember, indeed, that was 2019, and going through this space, the days that we spent, with Hope and coaching and your team at CivSource. I looked at one, especially the chakra of fire, that, what we create outside does come from the fire that, we carry within. And I looked at the notes, I wrote just after that meeting we had, because I sent you a note.
Yes.
And you remember, and if you see one of the paragraphs, it was in fact about Africa. I was writing so much about Africa. That's where my fire sits. And shortly after that, I started this role as an Africa director. And I was asking myself,
Africa director where? Because people listening want to know.
Okay, so I'm the Africa director for water.org. And I started this role shortly after this retreat, a few months after. And I was looking back and saying, what is this fire about Africa? So this is a water entity, the water social enterprise. And how does this connect with Africa? And indeed, when I came into this space, immediately I could see that the shifts that are at the continental level required me to use creativity that I never had as a person. I needed to draw into a space that, I couldn't see at that time. I had to become more creative. I started connecting, with knowledge bases. Like I've told you, I'm a person who loves reading, who loves learning from other leaders. I started seeing that it's creativity that, drove me and the team I had then to in fact expand our vision from a few countries where we were then to now begin to draw on vehicles that could drive us across the entire continent. So this is a space I would sit in. I would look in my office as a man and, we usually don't mind where we sit. But I started being creative to say we need to have clean spaces. We need to have, spaces with a soul. And everybody is beginning to understand that our creativity is what drives the results we have out there. So for me, that was a big, big thing that I picked from the training. And number two, Jackie, is I really want to mention a very small gift that you gave us. It was a green high-speed car. And you gave us that little gift and a car.
What, a toy?
It was a toy car. In fact, it was a toy car. And first said, okay, am I going to drive this toy at that level? But I just sat that just before me at my desk. And in my mind, I said, look, when you look at the speed at which the world has been changing since then and the shifts that we are facing, the speed of change is way, way higher than what we had met in the previous 10 or 15 years. If I just look at the last 5 years, I ask myself, all these changes that, we've gone through, that speed was unprecedented. And as a leader, to make sure that the rate of change of speed outside, in fact, is already matched with the speed you have and the creativity that you're bringing on board. For me, that is one thing which has been on my mind as I lead this continental program. And I'm so thankful that at least I sat in this space before I started this work, so that I don't come here with the same mindset I had, the experience I had as a leader in the different levels. So that's been extremely helpful space. So thanks to you, Francis.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you think about leadership and Africa, what are your pains? What are your hopes?
I think I will start on this. And Jack, I will start with a book, Where Have the Leaders Gone? Where have all the leaders gone? When I see this book and I see Africa, I ask this question. And boldly I ask it across all our 54 countries. Where have the leaders gone? And where has leadership gone?
Yeah.
And it's not a complicated leadership.
Yes.
It's very basic questions we ask, right from the heads of our nations. And
all the way to heads of families.
Heads of families, exactly. So where have the leaders gone and where has leadership gone? And so when I see that book, it's by Lee Crocker, something, I ask myself, so what is then my place in such a space where clearly there is a lack of leadership? That I ask myself, people who lived before us, if Nelson Mandela came back and saw this, if Mother Teresa came back and saw this, history will judge us so bad. But I ask myself, will it judge me along all these people because I'm present in this generation?
Absolutely.
And in fact, like Dorah said, I ask myself, are we being impactful or are we just sitting back and have settled in our boxes and corners? Because I think the water organization I'm leading in Africa is doing fairly well, then I'm doing well. I'm so wrong because I will be judged together with all the leaders that lived in my generation. So for me, that's the big question I have, that we are living in times where there is little leadership or perhaps a lack of it. And we are living in a time that in fact comes after a period when there were leaders that we speak of. All our writings refer to leaders who lived in a generation
be free for access. Are you saying, so the thing that you've said reminded me of a statement, a forest of leaders and a desert of leadership.
Thank you. That's it. The forest is there. Many forests, yes.
Yes, a leader's spirit. The leadership desert and you leaders.
Yeah.
And therefore the responsibility, it requires Oba. Yeah, to show up.
To show up, yeah. We can't sit back in comfort. Yeah.
Dorah, what are your thoughts? Yeah, so building on Francis's mind around values leadership, what the retreats gave us was coining values around soulfulness. The framework that the most loved Hope Chigudu provided for us in that space. Leading with soul. Tapping into, a leadership that sees beyond what is in the space. Leading with love, leading with fire, leading with groundedness, leading with empathy. To me, still is a framework I find so real and has continued to be with me since the retreats. Francis speaks of how just being in the leadership retreat shaped for him what an environment of his office should look like. Oh my goodness, if you walk in his office today, you feel proud. Yeah. It is a beautiful, spotless office. He's always been. My husband has always been like a person who has an eye for beauty, for things that are, sparkly, nice and calm. But I think that space brought it to him. And it's not just the space he lives. He sits and works every day. It is the environment created for people that work with him at water.org. Like, he is an instrument of peace. I see that in him in many ways. On my part, I look back, 5 years, 6 years after UGANET, and I see them still, working around the beauty of plants, working and keeping them fresh and lovely as they were planted after the leadership retreat. And I feel proud. I look at their photos every day and I'm like, oh, my people, the space that we built together. But that is not just in an outer space, but also in how connection, relationship, and the everyday labor of love that we invest in our work, being work that brings beauty, that brings healing, that enables us to remain well even while we are working hard. That is what I picked from the retreat that continues to live with me. And when you talk about the pains, that because we are surrounded with a lot of messiness, we are surrounded with a lot of challenges in our work, we sometimes take on that shape of messiness, of fighting, of intrigue, of, you do not see what makes you well. And the role of a leader within the messiness is to create calm, is to create peace, is to give direction, even in times that are not the easiest. And when you look at the leadership that we see most times, when you read the stories that come on our news feed, it's a lot of messiness. And it's a pain when then our groundedness diminishes with that, when our wellness diminishes with that, when our values go alongside that. So, yeah, I would still hope and wish that the leaders that are emerging continue to tap into their soulfulness.
No, you've said very powerful things, both of you. That the issue of space is one that we have talked a lot about in CivSource and Civ Legacy, and all the times that we do the retreats. It is, like you said, inviting leaders into a space and creating it like they've never experienced before, but a space that speaks that you are loved, you are honored, you are cared for, you are valuable.
And that's important. That's why we don't see this all the time. That's why the first idea that came to me, we were going to talk about philanthropy and money and fundraising and writing, because that is what the world offers. You hardly hear a person calling you to a space to be loved, to be pampered, to be taken care of. Never. Like, for me, it was mind-blowing. I quickly told my husband, do you know, we were given gifts, we were in this space, we were loved, we were like, oh my goodness, what a space. So the grace of nurturance that comes with these spaces, you know, the kind of community that is built within these spaces. To be honest, there is a huge part of people who I call my people that emerged from the space, and 7 years later, they are still my to-go-to people. Yeah, so nurturance, soulfulness, space is so important.
It is.
It really shapes direction.
It does.
For many.
And like you said, both the internal space, because we do create from what is inside, right? And out of the fullness of the heart, and when the heart is empty, is it a wonder that we are creating, this forest of leaders, a desert of the real shape,
So it's from the emptiness of the heart.
Until you feel it, you cannot lead. Until it's deep there, you cannot lead. So a place of passion that really comes from deep feeling, that whole chakra, because one of the conversations there was expand your heart. Expand the heart chakra. The heart is the one that indeed brings out life, expand love, expand that inner space that then is able to come out and answer questions that are before us every day as leaders. And leading without love, leading without heart is what we see many times when we are dealing with pain and challenges and disappointments, is when we are leading without heart. It takes another twist when you're leading with heart, when you're leading with love, when you're leading with mending and healing. What comes out of that space indeed answers questions for life.
And so as we learn this conversation, what is your heart for CivSource? Like I said, we are celebrating 8 years. I was talking to my team on Friday and I was painting a picture of the first 7 and now of the next 7. So what are your wishes for us as we embark on our 8th year? What do you speak into us? What do you see for us?
Great. I'll go first on that, Jackie, because when I just reflected on these 7 years and, what we got out of this whole experience, is that for me then CivSource is a builder of community. Is a build of community, and in fact, we need to be part of this community so that we give value to even more leaders that come through this space. Because indeed, understanding what meets us as leaders, what crushes us, the mountains we face. I saw your book about, Renzori and mountains facing Kilimanjaro, and you're like, I'm not being ready for this.
Yes.
We are reaching junctures at every point where you say, wow, what I have is not enough to take me across the next peak. So the big thing for me is being part of this community to build more leaders, to be part of what CivSource is doing, and in every way to see where we can humbly contribute, who we are in this space.
Thank you. May we continue to be a community of leaders that builds leaders into communities. Thank you.
No, the eight years of CivSource have been amazing. Even if you were just to go by the story that we tell, that out of this space, we were able to, each of us, tap into our creativity. You talk of Rising Woman Shelter Home right now in Tinda. It is a fruit of wanting to create wellness and healing that God created in a CivSource space. You talk of the kind of leadership Francis is taking to the continental level. He had it in him, but it got sparked and fueled and nurtured when he engaged in real conversations. Imagine you've done this to another 500. You are changing the space. You're changing the face of the continent. In many ways, you may never know. So there is power in building leaders. There's been, I can imagine where all the different facets of the people that have come through the different leadership spaces. I remember when immediately I came from the escape, I asked a colleague of mine, Grace, to really apply for Grow. You really need to begin Grow. And she did Grow. Then I also told Immaculate, my other colleague, because you need to be Grow. I think she's also done Grow. She's now an ED of another organization. So even just seeing what my close colleagues at UGANET have become today. You see Grace leading a big organization. You see Immaculate leading another big organization. Oh my goodness. It really, they've gotten the love, the mentorship. Most of it from the CivSource spaces. I feel proud of them and of CivSource. So you're creating ripples that I think will soon become an ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Please continue to do that. So my prayer for CivSource is that you will continue to be you. You'll continue to build with grace indeed. You'll continue to build with the love that you have put into this thing, because this was one of its kind. You don't see people being invited for a treat. Come and I treat you. You don't hear this every day. Yeah. Come and I support you. I remember, Jackie, how you were very supportive of me in my transition journey. I needed somebody to speak to. I needed somebody to hold my hand. And you had created an environment and a space that I knew I could come to you. How many leaders out there are going through challenging conversations and times and moments, and they don't have who to turn to? You helped me as Jackie, a friend I had developed. But then CivSource gave us the funds we needed to make the decisions. It wasn't huge amount of money, but the money that was invested within our system helped us to an extent lessen the kind of pressure and challenges that came with our transition. We are deeply grateful for CivSource, and I really hope for so much more, more blessing, more ability, more vision, more direction for you and your team, that CivSource will continue to really shape the continent.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to add, Francis, do you want to add something?
I am so thankful.
You're so thankful. Yes. Thank you. Thank you both for taking time to speak with us, to speak to our listeners. And we wish you well. We wish you well in your leadership journeys, as you grow leaders yourselves, both in your organizations where you lead, but even your children. We wish you absolutely well. Listeners, thank you so much. Catch you for the next conversation. Bye.